This podcast is from the team at Healthcare IT Leaders, a national leader in IT consulting and workforce solutions serving top U.S. hospital systems. You can support our show by leaving a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. Thanks for listening. Now here's our latest episode.
There's no doubt that ambient listening is saving our doctors time. However, it's across 1,000 doctors, it's saving 3 minutes a day. And so it doesn't really translate into another visit. It's one of those things where there's a benefit, but it's not necessarily a reapable, benefit. And that's a learning for us. And it's making us rethink how we look at the return on investment associated with AI initiatives.
From Healthcare IT Leaders, you're listening to Leader with Mike Robbins stepping in for Ben Hilmes. Our guest today is Jeff Gautney, Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Rush University System for Health. In our conversation, Jeff discusses the complexities of managing a healthcare IT organization, focusing on Rush Health System strategies in AI, digital transformation, and change management.
Hey, welcome, Jeff. Nice to meet you and to spend time with you. I also spent many years in this healthcare IT industry. And we're going to cover a lot of ground today, from AI to your workforce strategies. But let's start with your organization. Tell us a little bit about Rush and your health system.
Sure. And thanks for the opportunity, Mike. So Rush is a medium-sized health system located in Chicago, about $3.5 billion in revenue, an academic medical center at its core that's located in the West Loop in downtown Chicago. And then 2 community hospitals in the western suburbs, 40 or 50 different clinics, about 15,000 employees across the health system. We have a fully integrated university, which has 3 colleges. So it's a little bit of a different model where, the university and the health system are somewhat separate. These are fully integrated. So my team supports all of the academic and research missions, as well as the patient care mission for Rush. And we've been around since before there was a city of Chicago. Actually, there was a Rush before Chicago was incorporated. So there's a long history, which is sort of unusual in the Midwest. It's very common in the Northeast, where places have been around for a couple hundred years, but it's sort of unusual in the Midwest. So we're very proud of that heritage.
Well, without a doubt, a complex organization that you get a chance to work with. I wanted to kind of skip and learn a little bit more about you. So I love your background, kind of unique career path of going consulting, vendor, provider organizations, and similar. I worked for years at a vendor, now worked on the provider side. So it was similar, but fill us in on some of the details of your background and tell us how this diverse background has prepared you for your role as a CIO at Rush.
Yeah, it's really one of those, sliding door kind of careers that I think probably a lot of folks have, where I hated hospitals, never wanted to be in one, and graduated from college and found myself working in a hospital as a mental health worker. Got involved with the implementation of a early on order entry system, wound up going to work for that software vendor, and everything sort of snowballed from there. So I got a crash course in healthcare IT, working at Shared Medical back in the day, which was a big employer for a lot of very young people, similar to how Epic gives a lot of people their start these days. That's the way SMS was. And went from there into consulting, wound up becoming a partner at Ernst & Young in their healthcare practice. When I left E&Y, decided I wanted to do something different, went to work for Eclipsys, was Allscripts Eclipsys Corporation, and ran the outsourced operations at Northwell Health in New York City. So it was a really great experience to work with and build a team on the provider side and really own what you do and the consequences of your decisions, which was not something you usually have to face in consulting, but didn't feel like consulting was fully out of my blood. Left Allscripts Eclipsys, went to Deloitte, and was a managing director at Deloitte in their healthcare practice for 10 years. And like many people, during COVID, spending a lot of time looking at myself, wondering, what am I doing? What do I want to do? What's this next chapter going to be about? And decided I really wanted to go the CIO route, and really wanted to do it with an organization that had a commitment to health equity and put those plans into actual action. And so I'm really proud to say that Rush, is that kind of an organization. It's It's resourceful and large enough to have all of the complex issues and the capabilities that you'd want, but not so large that you've got so much technical debt that all you're really doing is, moving things forward an inch because you've got to integrate the last 5 acquisitions and you're stuck with 4 ERP systems. And that's not Rush. So I feel really fortunate for this chapter of my life to work in an organization like this. And I have to say, it's been a revelation in every way. It's been a really great experience. 3.5 years now here in Chicago at Rush, and it's been really an outstanding experience.
They're lucky to have you with that breadth and depth of experience. Our backgrounds do have a lot of connections where I'm sure we have mutual friends.
No doubt. It's a small industry, Mike. You can't make anybody angry at you because, sooner or later they come back. So.
Exactly right. Hey, let's go ahead and bridge into artificial intelligence. It's really kind of front and center for most CIOs these days. We recently heard you describe your AI strategy as a 4-bucket model. Tell us what you mean by that. What does that mean?
Yeah, so it's not so much the strategy as much as how we put the strategy into action that we think about in these 4 quadrants. There's a quadrant that's focused on what we should work on. What are the business priorities? How do we make decisions on how to spend the scarce resources that we have? And how do we prioritize those initiatives? And then how do we promote them? We call it our incubator. That's the one that takes an idea from, through the approval cycle. We have another group that's sort of the safety net. That's our governance group. It was born out of our data governance team, and it's our Office of Responsible AI. So it includes compliance and privacy and cyber and legal and HR and all of the considerations that you need to have when you're writing a contract for a new AI system or you're putting a model into production. Then we have a group that's focused on the data, because at the end of the day, all the models in the world, it all comes down to the data that they're operating against. And so that group is really sourced with what's the best source of data, how clean is that data, how do we mobilize it, how can it work to support the model that was approved by the incubator. And then lastly, there's like a tools and development group. What we were finding pretty early on was that kind of everybody had their own toolkit they were bringing to us and their own environment and their own way of testing. And so we said, no, we have to be in the driver's seat here. So we created a tools group that really focuses on that. And that group, that model, but especially that tools group has been really useful in all different kinds of AI, not just Gen AI, but also, when we use AI in medical imaging, when we do robotic process automation, all of those groups all are part of those strategies and the implementation of those solutions as well.
Fantastic. Really good. Well, AI is still very early on. Any early success stories, any pilot programs, anything where you can say, hey, this may actually work?
Well, lots. I mean, that's the thing. It's funny how we all say AI is really early on when we spent this morning probably looking at a weather report and maybe using Waze to find the best route to come in. I mean, it's actually been very quietly and very pervasively working its way into
new to healthcare
lives.
Probably new to healthcare probably is the
and even then you could say the sepsis protocol that got released a number of years ago is a form of AI. I'd say we, like many other organizations, have spent some time with ambient listening as an example of AI. We originally were partnered with Microsoft several years ago and we're an early adopter of some of that technology. And recently we've been working with another company named Suki that we think is doing some great stuff in that space. That's been very successful. We have embraced most of what Epic has offered in terms of, inbox management, discharge summaries, those kinds of things. We've worked with Epic on those and pushing that science forward. And then we have a number of models that we've put together ourselves, whether they be in medical imaging, working with Bayer and their Calantic framework, or with just our own researchers and faculty. I'd say one of the learnings from all of it, to be honest with you, is an ambient listening or inbox are both great examples. There's no doubt that ambient listening is saving our doctors time. And there's no doubt that inbox management is providing a better quality communication and saving some time as well. However, it's across 1,000 doctors, it's saving 3 minutes a day. And so it doesn't really translate into another visit. It doesn't really translate into a budget line item that I could go cut the cost of. it's one of those things where there's a benefit, but it's not necessarily a reapable, benefit. And that's a learning for us. And it's making us rethink how we look at the return on investment associated with AI initiatives. We're pretty far into a Copilot, Microsoft Copilot implementation, and same thing. The cost to deploy Copilot, because it's not that inexpensive, it's relatively pricey, versus the benefit. We can see the benefit, but I can't point to something in the budget that's going to go away because of it. And I can't point to something in our revenue growth plan that's directly attributable to the implementation of Copilot. So there's a little bit of the organization saying, sometimes you have to do this because it gives you a competitive advantage. Ambient's a great example. I feel like in the competitive Chicagoland market, as we are all in this scrum for clinicians, that not having ambient will be a significant disadvantage to attracting and retaining clinicians going forward. It's going to be an expectation. Yes, there's benefit there. Again, can I put a hard number to it? Kind of tough.
Yeah. I come with a technology background of EHRs and implementations and relationships. Change management to me was always a very important part of an implementation. I would assume that's the same when you're getting into these artificial intelligence and these different platforms. Can you speak just a little bit to the change management aspects of these types of initiatives?
It's funny because that was an appendage for a while, right? Yeah. And now it's transforming into becoming a core competency, I think, first for the people that we work with, our operations staff, but now also for my leadership group, where the decisions that have to be made around the software are kind of fewer and fewer. And the work that has to be done to change people's jobs, change process, bring people along, identify when people are checking out, that work has grown exponentially. And so in a way, the role of a CIO and the role of an IT professional, I think, is changing. We've always liked to say that we're change agents, but we didn't really apply maybe a scientific methodology to that. And now I see much, much more growth in terms of within our group. And in fact, we just hired a new pretty senior level person to run our change management organization and develop it as a core competency for our management team.
Fantastic. Great response, great leadership on your side to do that. Related to AI, you mentioned in a recent interview that one of the biggest disruptors you see is the pressure to use automation to compensate for talent gaps. And I think you were just hitting on that. How do you see the IT function of the future handling these gaps or these challenges with AI?
Well, ultimately, what I really would hope it'll become is that as a service line leader sits down and says, here's my revenue plan for the year. Here's what I want to accomplish. Here are my strategic goals. Where are the human resource risk areas? And they do that now, but they don't take it to the next level to say, how could I use automation potentially to mitigate some of that risk? So whether that's taking some of the low-level repeatable tasks that we could use RPA to do and freeing up that budget or freeing up those people and upskilling them, or it's thinking about the process in a different way, maybe applying some digital technology or some self-service or, any one of a number of automations that they could use to deal with that shortfall. I think, there's no doubt that we've long since crossed the line where we're going to have enough clinicians to care for, an aging, chronically ill population that has a very high expectation of the quality of care that they're going to deliver, that we're going to deliver, And so I think tech is one of the ways out of it, maybe one of the only ways out of it, to be honest with you. And that goes across our business, how we educate clinicians and grow and the skill sets that we teach them, as we're developing the next generation of young clinicians, and how to work with this technology is going to be really vitally important to how they approach what they do. It's an exciting time. It's a little scary, but there's no cavalry coming over the hill to bail us out. We're really going to have to figure this out once and for all. We've been talking about it for as long as I can ever remember. Oh, the baby boomers are going to retire. Oh, what's going to happen then? And guess what? It's happening. We're living it. So, now what do we do? And then obviously COVID had a significant impact on people's job satisfaction in our industry, led to a lot of folks rethinking how they felt about what they do in healthcare. And so we've seen fallout from that as well.
Yeah, that traditional HR function is changing as we adopt some of these new strategies as well. So you hit those very well. Digital innovation and consumer experience. You've talked about a digital strategy at Rush that has the three main pillars. Tell us what those are, and kind of how they relate to what you're thinking about.
Sure. Like most folks have, we have a pretty robust digital consumer strategy, and it's based on access and different models for care. So virtual primary care, virtual specialty care, streamlined access, the ability to engage with us around content and ask questions and symptom checking and all of those things that are very consumer focused. We have a strategy around that. And we're about 18 months. We refreshed that about 18 months ago. So we're about 18 months into this latest version of the 3-year plan, and it's been very successful. The other two pillars are focused more internally. So one's focused on care transformation. So how do we apply digital technology towards things like, virtual nursing or ambient listening, or how do you transform the care model? Whether it's increased use of MAs by providing, additional digital support for them, or providing ways for aids for clinicians who are doing diagnostic reads, so AI protocols that deal with the hanging protocols of what images they should be looking at next, or help them do diagnosis in looking for, very fine abnormalities in an image. That digital care transformation is the second pillar. And then the third is digital operations efficiency. And RPA is one manifestation of that, but I'd say there's an awful lot of opportunity for automations and optimization in some of our existing platforms, whether they be Workday or Epic or others, that, there are a lot of tools that exist in there that we don't take as much advantage when squeezing every ounce of the value out there. And so that digital operations efficiency looks at that. And also, I think, gets to foundational challenges that impact the other two. So as an example, schedule books and who controls them and who manages block time, right? These are like third rail politic kind of issues in any healthcare provider, but they really dictate a lot of operations efficiency because they're the key to unlocking rooms and equipment and staff. And then that gets manifest in the consumer strategy, and it gets manifest in how the care model changes. But it starts by looking at operations efficiency and how can we be as efficient as possible. Yeah, that's one of the things at Rush for us to continue to be viable as a $3.5 billion operation. Remember, we're in town with Advocate Aurora, which is gigantic, right? And Northwestern, which is international in scale. And so for us to be able to compete, we have to compete on quality, which we are. We were number 2 in Vizient this year. Very proud of that. And for, a couple of years now, we've been in that top 3. So you have to compete on quality, but you have to also compete on efficiency and access. We have to be easier for folks to use, and we have to be hyper efficient in what it takes for us to provide great care. And then we have to meet our quality numbers. So that's vital. It's intrinsic to us remaining, as an independent organization. So.
Well, great. Thinking of those 3 pillars, I think about leadership as well. And some organizations are hiring chief digital officers. Others are consolidating those responsibilities under the CIO. Some is a combination thereof. How do you think about digital as a specialized discipline in this trend towards being both CIO and chief digital officer?
I'm old school, Mike. I've been at this a while. So maybe I might be thinking about it incorrectly, but I sort of oddly enough, remember a kind of similar conversation back in 1999 to 2003, where, it was all about the web and everything was, and that's a really specialized skill. And we really need different people to do it. And they have to, wear flip-flops and ripped jean shorts to work and so forth. And that's cool by me. I'm really all about the ripped jean shorts and the flip-flops. But the fact is that, pretty quickly it became clear that there was a piece of that in everything we did. And so it really couldn't live all by itself because it was dependent on the legacy systems. It was dependent on the data. It was dependent on the workflows that are embedded in those legacy those big box applications. So the approach we've tried to take with innovation, but the other thing that led to was there was this group of cool kids who had foosball tables, and then there was everybody else that had to live in cubes, right? And so you have this disenfranchisement, of your workforce, and you have a bunch of people who think that all they have to do is like web pages and don't really understand that it's all about the workflow, right? So with innovation, with digital and with AI, we've taken an approach that said every single person in our organization owns part of this. And so how do we upskill everybody? How do we teach everybody how to use this technology? Now, there's definitely specialized skills, right? Not everybody is going to be a prompt engineer, as an example. However, the Epic team has an AI component. They have an innovation component. They have a digital component to them. The Workday team has the same. The Salesforce team has the same. We do have a small group that deals with sort of those nuances or those digital only applications. But even that group was grown out of those legacy groups. We moved people who understood Epic into the digital side, as opposed to hiring somebody with digital who had no understanding of how the underlying workflows within Epic functioned, as an example. So I feel really strongly in terms of the leadership that it's really hard and maybe a mistake to carve out digital from the rest of the information systems platform. What kind of happens, we saw this when we did our plan for operations efficiency and care transformation, was we were kind of talking, and before you knew it, everything other than cyber was in the scope of fell into one of those three buckets, right? ERP fell into it, Access Center fell. So I was kind of like, well, then what's the IT plan? Because if everything is in this digital plan, is the only thing that we're doing is planning cyber? They're like, oh, no, cyber has to be in the digital plan too. So I think it's hard. Now, there are organizations that, have merged, like, for instance, marketing and communications in with digital and branding. That's a different skill set. And I do think there's, a need for that. And I work very closely with our marketing communications group. They do an outstanding job. Same thing with operations in terms of content and workflow impacts of these strategies. But as far as the technology underpinning goes, I think it's a mistake to try to divorce them. And I think when that's happened in the past, we've wound up putting them back together again after a few years because we realized that, it's a channel, it's a new way of those systems evolving. I'll give you just one more example. If you were to look at Workday last year, they presented their AI strategy and they talked about job descriptions and how, because Workday is all one platform, you could use this AI chat GPT like tool and it would help you synthesize a job description. And that was really cool. It's this AI function. But the reality is, like, within 2 years, that's going to be the job description function. It's not going to be this other thing, this other way of writing job descriptions. That's just going to be the way you write a job description in Workday, right? It's going to be a core part of the platform. And so why treat it like it's really happening somewhere else to another group? It's all inside the core. And that way also, people feel like they have career development, that you're not penalizing them because they are really good at Epic ambulatory pharmacy and they're stuck there, right? Because the other people get to work on all the cool stuff. Everybody gets to work on the cool stuff. That's kind of the approach we've tried to take. So far, it's working.
Yeah, I love your analogies. I love the stories and, how the pieces fit together. And sometimes keeping it simple is the best way. I'm sure it's hard, still hard work, but keeping it as simple and structured as you possibly can. So switching gears kind of beyond digital, what else is on your radar as you head into 2025? Tell us about some of your enterprise IT goals and what you're planning for the year ahead.
Well, we're in the third year. So I've been here 3.5 years. So we're in our third year, moving into our fourth year of what I would say was a cleanup or remediation, project that we've had going on with our infrastructure, with our cyber team and so forth. So we have 5 data centers here at Rush. We're a $3.5 billion organization. I'm not even sure we should have one, but we have 5. Now, one's more horrible than the next. So 3 of them have water lines running through them. One of them has a leak in the roof. I call that my water-cooled data center because the water comes in when it rains hard. One of them's underneath a parking garage, if you can believe that. That's not a great place to put sensitive equipment. And one of them's in a building that the lease is up in 2 years. So one of our big projects this year is a cloud migration, but also moving to 2 industrial strength colo data centers. I was joking with my team the other day. I said, we're going from 5 to 7 data centers. They said, yeah, but only till the end of the year, and then we'll be back to 2. So that's a big project for us. We're in the midst of a Workday implementation. We have multiple Infor systems that we're replacing with Workday. And so that's a big effort for us and a ton of change management associated with that. We're continuing to grow our Salesforce platform. We're an early adopter for their Agentforce technology in AI. I think we're going to talk about that at Vive in a few weeks. And we're really interested to see how that platform will enable us now that we've sort of built the base of customer information and customer intelligence within Salesforce. We're really interested to see what we could do with that with Agentforce. And we're, by the way, also doing a service area consolidation in Epic. So we're kind of tearing the beating heart of Epic out. So it's going to be a busy year. Our team's excited, a little scared, but excited at the same time.
Well, fantastic. That's not an easy thing that you're doing. Yeah, I had a client of mine that had thought that it was a good idea to put their data center underneath a swimming pool. So it was in a center and the swimming pool was above it. And yeah, not the best idea, but let's wrap up. Lastly, you're there 3.5 years now, your first CIO role. And again, congratulations on that. You've done wonderful things there. But tell us, what surprised you the most and what's been your biggest learning or takeaway for you? So something you could share with your peers that are saying, hey, the CIO job is pretty easy, but it's not. I know that.
Well, that definitely not that. I mean, it's very funny because you think when you're a consultant, because you're traveling, that your life is a grind and how hard it is. And then you get into an operations job like this and you realize that your life's not your own. You come in every day with an idea about what you'd like to accomplish, and then life happens all around you. Things break, things happen, and your priorities go out the window because you're dealing with that. So that was a real adjustment. One of the things I really loved was being part of a team dealing with difficult ethical and equity issues and running a healthcare business, like actually being a valued part and having a voice in that kind of a group was a real, very different experience than being consultant, where you're really there to do a thing, and you want to get everything out of the way to do that one thing. That's what you're there to do. And this is really different. It's every bit as exciting and rewarding as I thought that it would be. Biggest challenge, to be honest with you, particularly over the last 12 months, has been cyber. Like, I just never get a good night's sleep. And I slept like a baby when I was a consultant. Everybody's like, oh, I can't sleep in a hotel. I slept on airplanes, slept in hotels, back of cars, no problem. Ever since I became a CIO, not one wink, because I'm just waiting for the next CrowdStrike or, somebody kicks out a cable and blows up, the shorts out the whole head of a rack of servers that happen to control the parking lot arms. So now nobody can get out of the parking garage. I mean, there's always something breaking. There's always a cyber threat lurking. That level of vigilance, I have great respect for people who have done this job for 30 years. I'm pretty sure I couldn't do it for 30. I'm really enjoying doing it for 3, but I don't think I would have made it for 30. So I have much respect for all of you who have done this and been very successful at it.
Yeah, it's been the year of the cyber attacks, so I could see why that would keep you awake. The health system I'm working with had a pretty significant outage because of that. But Jeff, it has been my pleasure and honor to meet you and to get a chance to talk with you. I know that your insights are going to be valuable for our listeners. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate the opportunity and wish you very well, and to all of your listeners. Thank you.
Jeff had so much to share about the need for increased efficiency in healthcare and how we can deliver it. Here are a few of takeaways from our conversation. Number 1, AI is a must-have for staying competitive, according to Jeff. But some of the initial productivity gains may not be as significant as promised. Number 2, change management has become central to IT leadership. It's no longer just about tech. You have to help people adapt to new tools and workflows. Number 3, Jeff was refreshingly honest about the ups and downs of being a CIO. It's a constant balancing act between putting out fires and driving long-term innovation. So what did you think? What were your big takeaways from this episode? I'd love to hear from you on our social media channels or drop me an email from our website at healthcareitleaders.com.
Thanks for joining us for Leader to Leader. To learn more about how to fuel your own personal leadership journey through the healthcare industry, visit healthcareitleaders.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any insights, and we'll see you on the next episode.